The D-backs lose their fifth straight game after being taken down by the Colorado Rockies 7-5. And unfortunately, there's no excuses in this one.
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas. I'm a multimedia journalist and I'm a graphic designer, so please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com to see all of my latest work. On today's podcast, we'll talk about another frustrating D-backs loss. Can Merrill Kelly snap the skid in segment number 2? And I'll give some thoughts on the NL West through the first, 10 to 12-ish games of this season so far. So we got a jam-packed pod for you guys today. And as always, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. One of those platforms is YouTube, trying to hit 2,000 subscribers by the All-Star break. So please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. But now let's talk about tonight's game against the Colorado Rockies. D-backs lose their fifth straight game. They go down by a score of 7-5 to the Rockies. And man, oh man, there are no excuses in this one. Over the last few days, when the D-backs have lost the Yankees and Braves, at least you could have looked at the D-backs and said, you know what? They jumped out to big, commanding leads, but some blunders on the base path, some bad bullpen decision-making by Torey Lovello, some just costly mistakes overall. It felt more like the D-backs' self-inflicted wounds led to those losses to the Yankees and Braves instead of like, yes, the Braves and Yankees played well, but felt more like the D-backs killed themselves than those teams stealing the wins away from the D-backs. But in this game against the Colorado Rockies, you cannot say that. The Rockies just straight up outplayed the D-backs in this game. It was the Colorado Rockies who struck first. It was the Colorado Rockies who had a better offensive performance against our ace, Zach Gallen, than what we did against their best pitcher in Kyle Freeland. It was their bullpen that was able to get the critical outs later in the game. It was their offense that was able to tack on runs later in the game, have a comeback in this game. Like, the Rockies did everything from an execution standpoint. Yes, they had that one defensive mistake by Ryan McMahon at third base, which led to 2 D-backs runs. But outside of that, the Rockies just straight up outplayed the D-backs in this game. And the D-backs have no excuse and have absolutely no excuses but to come out and hopefully play better in game number 2. Zach Gallen had himself a pretty up and down start because you look at the numbers, the strikeouts were there for Zach Gallen. 5 innings pitched, 10 strikeouts. He was generating a lot of swings and misses. 48 swings, 15 whiffs. Zach Gallen was able to fool Rockies hitters on one hand, keep them off balance. But on the other hand, Rocky hitters were also locked in on Zach Gallen's fastball. Gallen on the night gave up 8 hits total, 3 earned runs, and the average exit velo on his fastball in this game was 98 miles per hour. And you have to wonder if there's a little bit of concern with that fastball because his velocity a little bit down from last year, only averaging about 92.7 miles per hour on his fastball from tonight's game against the Colorado Rockies. So something to monitor when it comes to Zach Gallen. Yes, he can still rack up the Ks, but he's also not fooling as much despite the case, the hitters also seem to be locked in at the same time. So it's a weird paradox for Zach Gallen. He can rack up the Ks, but he's also given up a lot of hits. It's kind of Robbie Ray-esque without the walks allowed. And he's also not giving up loud outs. It was a lot of line drives. It was a lot of singles. So not exactly Robbie Ray-esque, but it's just weird to see Zach Gallen striking out folks, but also giving up a lot of contact at the same time. Kind of reminiscent of what we saw in the second half last season by Zach Gallen. So hopefully he's able to turn it around soon, because as the ace of the staff, we thought we were going to break the losing streak against the Colorado Rockies, who only get their second win of the season with this game. So they have been, they get their third win of the season with this game. They've been absolutely horrendous. Thought Zach Gallen would maybe snap the skid. He does not, but it's not entirely his fault. D-backs up 4-1. Yes, Zach Gallen lets them in the game with his poor pitching, but also the bullpen was not able to shut down the Colorado Rockies either. We've been talking about how Miguel Castro cannot be on this team for too much longer. If he's on this team for another 2 to 3 weeks, that would be a problem and a mistake by this D-backs team and front office. The same could potentially be said for Scott McGough, who has been bad for 2 years now. Just like Castro, he was not good last year. You definitely couldn't trust him in high leverage moments or late game situations. And the same is being said once again in close games this year. Scott McGough has been absolutely horrendous for the Arizona Diamondbacks. So you can easily get rid of the McGuffs and the Castros of the world. I don't know how it would affect the books or the contracts or the salaries or whatever, but get rid of those two guys, straight up DFA them or whatever you have to do. And then you got guys like Justin Martinez in the minor leagues who can touch 103. Got guys like Andrew Saalfrank, who was really good just last season for you when you're the Arizona Diamondbacks. So they have better options in the minor leagues potentially than what they have in their major league bullpen right now. And I've just seen enough of the McGuffs and the Castros of the world. Those guys just don't get it done. So want to see them off this team. I know Luis Frias gave up an earned run tonight, but I still think there's potential there with him. He gave up a home run, but also 4 strikeouts over 2 innings. Still want to see what Luis Frias has to offer. And then offensively tonight, you had 7 hits. You put up 5 runs. I like that. You were able to draw 7 walks, like more walks and strikeouts. So the offense was able to do some good things, but we did see, unfortunate double up with a Corbin Carroll line drive down to first base. You weren't able to get timely hits later in this game. This D-backs offense was good early in this game, but in the second half of this game, they were not able to get the clutch hits. So hopefully in game number 2, with Merrill Kelly on the mound, the D-backs can get a big bounce back performance. The offense, I think, is fine. If honestly, the offense does what it did in game 1 again in game number 2, I think that's enough to beat the Colorado Rockies as long as your pitching steps up. I'm confident in Merrill Kelly, but it's going to come down probably to the bullpen stepping up, because the bullpen has been a big struggle during this losing streak. So hopefully all parties on the D-backs can step up if the D-backs want to win game number 2 and snap this losing streak. And we'll actually dive into what the D-backs have to do to snap the losing streak against the Colorado Rockies. But if you want to catch any D-backs games this season, then the best place to buy tickets is going to be Game Time, because Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat on your phone before you buy. All-in pricing shows your total cost up front. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. So many ways to save money on tickets no matter when you buy. Last minute deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it starts. Exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy theater, and more. I used Game Time last week when I was going to the D-backs game. It was the second game of the season. Didn't want to drop big money on an early season game, so I checked Game Time 20 minutes before the D-backs game started, and I was able to secure some really good seats for the cheap. So if you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, just use Game Time for a limited time. All users can get $20 off any MLB purchase of $150 or more in the Game Time app with code First Pitch. Terms apply. That's code First Pitch for $20 off from March 25th to April 14th only. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, all right, all right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. If you like the show, please follow me on Twitter at CareerThomas24 for the personal account, or look up Locked On Diamondbacks both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. But now let's talk about what the D-backs need to do in game number 2. They want to snap the losing streak and get back to their winning ways, because the D-backs are now 4-7 on the year, 0-4 on the road, and the D-backs are going to have to pick it up a little bit, just because I do not like watching a losing baseball team, especially if I got to cover you every day. You better be winning games. I do not want another 2021 season, and I don't think we're anywhere near those discussions. I'm very confident in the D-backs being a very good team this season. But to become a very good team, you have to win games. And so hopefully in game number 2, with Merrill Kelly on the mound, the D-backs can do just that, because we're hoping Merrill Kelly can just replicate what he did last time against the Colorado Rockies after a very shaky Zach Gallen game 1, where the D-backs did ultimately lose. We need a feel-good start from Merrill Kelly in this game. And honestly, it's one of those games where Merrill Kelly, if he goes out there and absolutely dominates the Colorado Rockies and is able to snap the losing streak, it does raise the question and the growing narrative that I've heard around the rotation of, is Merrill Kelly the true ace of this D-backs rotation? And if you want to tell me he is, I'm actually not going to argue with you. I think Zach Allen's the most talented pitcher, but game-to-game consistency, going back to last season, I'm not going to argue if you think Merrill Kelly is the actual true ace of this D-backs rotation, because last time Merrill Kelly pitched against the Rockies, he for sure looked like an ace. 6.2 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts, and just 79 pitches. And we'll definitely take that performance once again in tomorrow's game. The only question is, can Merrill Kelly throw a complete game this time? Probably not, especially in Coors Field, where the offense is probably going to be a little bit more electric. Last time, it was in Chase Field, of course. Merrill Kelly threw all 6 of his pitches, but the 2 pitches he leaned on the most, fastball, cutter. Wonder if he still wants to go with that kind of sequencing. Wonder if he changes his mind because he plays in Coors Field, or if he's going to stick with what worked in game number 1. So very curious to see how Merrill Kelly is going to pitch tomorrow. I would say the guys you have to watch out for the most in that Rockies lineup: Ezekiel Tovar, Montero, and Chris Bryant. Those are the 3 guys that have had the most success off Merrill Kelly in this Colorado Rockies lineup. So as long as you can slow those 3 down, really not give up too much damage to that trio, I think the rest of the lineup will kind of just fall into place, and Merrill Kelly should be able to cruise through the lineup, because that's what he did the first time. The only concern I would have for Merrill Kelly in this game is the fact that it's in Coors Field, a ballpark where the ball flies a little bit more. Rockies, a much better offensive team at home, so maybe they do a little bit more damage to Merrill Kelly than what we normally see. Maybe he gives up 2 earned runs over 7 innings pitched with like 6 hits because it's in Coors Field. But if he's able to do that, walk away with a quality start, and the D-backs are in line for the win at the end of the game, I would be very happy. Now for the offense, they need to do what they always do against Cal Quantrill, because the D-backs as a team have dominated Cal Quantrill up and down the lineup. The D-backs as a team have a 299 average and a 926 OPS against Cal Quantrill. Jock, Suarez, and Walker have done the best against Cal Quantrill in their respective careers of anyone in this D-backs lineup. So that's the trio. If you were to look to who is going to potentially do damage from this D-backs lineup. Yes, the whole lineup has done good against Cal Quantrill, but that trio specifically has done the most damage. In the first game this season against Cal Quantrill, Gurriel and Christian Walker each had a home run against Cal. And then Cal in that game, 5 innings pitched, 5 earned runs, 9 hits. So the D-backs looked very comfortable against Quantrill in the first game that they matched up against him. So hopefully the offense once again can do more of the same. And then hopefully this whole series can be where Corbin Carroll finally gets it going. He had 2 hits in game 1, still didn't come through really in the clutch like you want to from Corbin Carroll. Hasn't really delivered like the big hit or like the knock that puts the D-backs in front, the knock that gets the momentum going for the D-backs. Like he's been a part of some of the run scoring by getting on base and getting scored himself. But in terms of bringing home other guys, Corbin Carroll, I don't think has been very important in that part of the game. I don't think he's been super impactful in terms of driving home other people. So hopefully being at Coors Field, going against a righty pitcher who he's struggled against righties so far this year. So hopefully this could be the time that Corbin Carroll actually gets going. Had a successful steal in game 1. So hopefully he gets his confidence in base running as well up because he has been struggling in that area. I'm just hoping this series against the Colorado Rockies breaks Carroll out of his slump because Carroll is just way too good to be slumping for a prolonged period of time. Now we'll talk about some thoughts that I have on the NL West through the first couple of weeks of the season. But first, if you want to win some money with the #1 daily fantasy sports app, then you need to be playing with Prize Picks because spring training is over and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks entries. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick or more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entries today. Get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. I like to take LeBron's points, rebounds, and if I parlay them together and win, I feel good. And if you want to feel good, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. All right. Let's get back into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about the state of the NL West because the D-backs are on their little 5-game losing streak. They don't look the best right now, but entering tonight's game against the Colorado Rockies, this is how the division odds stacked up for the NL West. Dodgers at minus 750, which was not a surprise to anyone. D-backs at plus 1200. Giants at plus 1400. Padres at plus 2400. And Rockies at plus 5000. So FanDuel, obviously, to begin the year so far through the first, 10 to 12 games, Dodgers easily the favorites for the NL West, which is not a surprise. D-backs, a little bit of separation between them and the Giants. Not a lot, but, entering the year, it was basically neck and neck between the D-backs, Giants, and Padres. D-backs consider the second best team, right there on the heels of the Giants. And then a pretty decent gap between the Giants and Padres, which I find a little bit surprising. Then, of course, the Rockies in the cellar of the NL West. When I look at the San Diego Padres, I'm surprised that they think it's that far between them and the Giants because I still hold out my belief that the Padres are going to be better than the Giants at the end of the season and be the third wildcard team. I still think this Padres team is pretty loaded with talent. And so far to start the year, a lot of their complementary pieces have been good. The profiles have been good. The Merrills have had good starts. You look at the rotation, the back end guys like the Michael Kings of the world have been pretty good as well for the San Diego Padres. Right now, they're getting contributions past their stars. And to be honest, their stars haven't really gone going yet. Manny Machado has struggled to start the year. Xander Bogaerts has struggled to start the year. Fernando Tatis Jr. is putting up good all-star numbers, but not the MVP numbers that we're used to. Joe Musgrove has struggled through his first two starts. The Padres have been equal to the D-backs to start the year. But for the Padres, the reason why I still think that they could be a potential playoff team to end the year is because their stars haven't gotten going yet. With their complementary pieces are already playing well. You're getting more contributions than you expected from some of those members in your rotation. If the Machados can heat up, if the Bogarts can heat up, I think that Padres team is going to be scary going forward. So I'm not discounting them just yet. I actually think the Padres are still a sleeper team to watch out for going forward. For the Giants, though, despite them having much better odds than the Padres to win the division, I think some of the concerns that we had about the Giants entering the season have been warranted. When you look at the lineup, there is a lack of ceiling in that lineup. Conforto is off to an amazing start. I don't know if he can sustain that. Jorge Soler is going to be fine. But the rest of that lineup, Jung Ho Lee, he needs to pick it up. Matt Chapman, maybe there's a reason why he waited so long in the season. To get signed. Like they're playing Nick Ahmed at shortstop. I just don't think their lineup has enough of a ceiling. And then you look at their rotation. If Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray don't come back at full strength and healthy, by the end of the year, like Logan Webb is really good, but he's struggling to start the year. Jordan Hicks has actually been a revelation. So I'm not worried about Logan Webb. I'm not worried about Jordan Hicks, but the rest of that rotation is a concern, and we were concerned about it entering the season. So I think a lot of the concerns that we had for the San Francisco Giants entering the season have been warranted so far. We thought the ceiling of that lineup might not have been that high, especially compared to some of the other teams that we've seen in the National League, like the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Braves, even the D-backs. Like, I don't think the Giants have matched up with them. And I think that's part of the reason why we see that offense exactly not lighting it up to start the season. Their rotation, not exactly the best either, because they are dealing with injuries, and we'll see when the Cobbs and the Robbie Rays come back. Then you look at the Dodgers. Yes, they're the best team in the division, but a lot of the Dodgers' success is due to the fact that they have a superstar lineup. I mean, you go up and down. They have 8 dudes right now putting up all-star numbers. So their offense is going to be able to carry them through a lot of the games. But their rotation right now, we knew it was a question mark going to this season. We've been saying the Dodgers rotation is a lot more risky than people realize. And so far, I think we know that's the case. Glasnow's been good to start the year. Yamamoto, he's had, an up and down start to the season. We knew he wasn't the best in his first start of the year. I think he was better in his most recent start for the LA Dodgers. I mean, when you watch him pitch, I think he's going to be fine. Some of his stuff is absolutely nasty. A lot of the numbers for Yamamoto so far in the year are really good. So not worried about the Glasnows and Yamamotos of the world, but the rest of the rotation, Gavin Stone, Bobby Miller, they might be starting James Paxton. Like, they desperately need, I think, the Walker Buehlers and the Clayton Kershaws of the world to come back and be healthy and pitch effectively in that Dodgers rotation. So for the Dodgers, yes, they're going to be able to smash their way probably to 100 games, 95 plus wins this season. But if they don't get the rest of their arms in that rotation, if the Kershaws don't come back at full strength, if the Walker Buehlers don't come back at full strength, if Bobby Miller doesn't progress throughout the start of the season, I could see the Dodgers being very susceptible once we get to the postseason, just like they were last year. So right now, when I'm looking at the NL West, for the Padres, I think they're a sleeper. For the Giants, I think I was concerned with them entering the year. I think my concerns are warranted. I don't think the Giants are a bad team, but I think they're like an 81 near 500 team that's going to be near the postseason mix the last month, but probably fall out the race the last like 12-ish games of the season. The Dodgers will win the division, but talk to me once we get to the postseason. The D-backs, we talk about them every single day on this podcast, so I'm not going to give any thoughts on the D-backs right now. Then, of course, the Colorado Rockies sitting at the bottom of the division. Hopefully, the D-backs can get 2 straight wins off the Rockies and get back on track in the NL West. Now, that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage insight. We'll talk after game 2. Hopefully, the D-backs snap their losing streak. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Doses.